business leaders and surgeons and barristers. I see women who are going to win elections and science competitions and arts awards.
Do not be afraid to fail.
We can
All right, everybody. Happy Sunday. Happy Tiff Talk Sunday. And this is a very special weekend. We actually celebrate 5 years of podcasting on yesterday. And believe it or not, I too myself can't believe that it's been 5 years that I've been in this space, have had this opportunity, and to be before you sharing insight and education and awareness about things and topics, trigger topics that are important to me. So I appreciate the ride, and I am happy to present to you guys an all new episode for today as we continue our Growing Through Growing Pains season for season 7. For those of you that are new to this platform, my name is Tiffany. I am a licensed clinical social worker by trade and a community activist at heart. And this platform was created to be able to connect people to community and also to have a safe haven to tackle and to discuss taboo topics. So a large part of what we discuss, of course, is self-care. We discuss wellness. We discuss minority mental health. We discuss breaking generational curse. And those topics that you are discussing with your family and friends at happy hour, around the office water fountain, in the barbershop, in the beauty shop, that really just could benefit from more attention and awareness. Today is no different. We are discussing another heavy hitter topic that is so that has gained so much attention within the last couple of years, and that is self-worth. Self-worth is one that I think over time has really developed and advanced, where people have developed their own definition. And today we're going to get down to the gritty and the nitty of it, because we know that self begins with self-care, self begins with self-worth, and the internal things that we need to truly work on. So I am going to hand it over to my guest for today so that she can introduce herself, and then we will get started with today's topic.
Hello, everyone. Greetings. My name is Stacey Freelo. I am a Houston, Texas native, born and raised. And today's topic is on self-worth. And my journey with self-worth has been quite a roller coaster. In my early years, I struggled a lot with self-esteem and often sought external validation to feel valued. So over time, I realized that that wasn't a sustainable path to happiness. So I began with working on my self-worth, focusing on self-acceptance and self-love. It wasn't easy, and I still had setbacks, as we all do. But I can definitely say that I'm still on that journey, and I am in a much better place today.
And you're here to talk about it with us.
Yes.
So I would have to say my journey of self-worth and self-love is definitely the same. And as I mentioned, the word self itself has gotten a lot of traction over the past couple of years. I mean, we have self-respect, we have self-worth, we have self-love, we have self-care, we have self-respect that you see so very often, whether it be in a meme, whether it be in a GIF, whether it be a hashtag. Just so much traction has come to the term self. And I wanted to talk about self-worth because I know my journey has been one that has developed over time. And 2, my journey into self-love, self-worth, self-care initiated from external factors. I will be very transparent in saying my self-love journey was as a result to how my now husband loved me. And making me feel worthy after coming out of a relationship where I had, I guess, lost myself to a certain extent, trying to uphold something that I can't even say now that I even remember what or why or why come, but or hold on to something or someone that, because of the way that my husband loved me, that really prompted me to get to a point where I was like, I deserve better. I deserve this love to be given to myself as he's given to me. And I think when it comes down to the external factors, those are, key indicators that may, I guess you can say, lay the foundation for you wanting more out of love, out of life, out of yourself. And when it comes down to self-worth, I understand that it comes from internal and within, but I don't always exclude the external. So I have to ask you, like, just kicking off the conversation, do you feel that self-care is a gateway to self-worth?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, self-love, when you practice self-love, you become a healthier person, healthier self, you're more aware. When you do the factors that we do for self-love, then definitely it will help with self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
When you love and care for yourself, you're more likely to feel more worthy or more worth. Just the word worth alone. When you brought this topic up and we presented this topic, I was like, okay, I see what we're doing. Because it's something that we struggle with on a daily basis. And when we struggle with that, it's not much so like you said, the external factors that come in. But even on a professional development, in professional work and personal, you have the imposter syndrome.
Mm.
Touching on the imposter syndrome and how you're like, that one word, you'll feel like, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I can't do this. And someone walks in with that self-worth,
Yeah.
with way less than what you can provide.
Yeah.
And they own it.
Yeah.
So sometimes it is definitely a gateway because you have to give yourself that grace. And if you feel worthy of whatever is coming to you, you got it. It's in the bag.
I love that you associated self-worth to owning it, because I think that is where the value starts. That's where the value begins for me, and where I own that I am enough. And at the end of the day, when I think about self-worth, that's what it is to me, like understanding and owning that I am enough. And let's be clear, enough today may not be enough tomorrow. Like, those scales and that level is going to change, fluctuate here and there, because I know for myself, I am not a full cup every day. Sometimes I am practicing, and we'll get into like the sufficiency of life later on in the discussion. But sometimes I am really like going off of sufficiency for myself. I'm going off of what I'm capable of. And for me, when it comes down to my own self-care, my own self-love, self-respect journey, self-worth journey, I have to like be clear and be real with myself that I can't truly say that I had a role model or a blueprint that was handed down to me when it comes to self-worth. And I say that because we in our generation have, as a result of past generations, stood in our own and have come into, I am enough. I'm worthy. I deserve this. Whereas I feel like generations before us wasn't afforded that opportunity. It's kind of like when people say, well, when people were saying at a point, like, it's a privilege to go to therapy and to have therapy because everyone isn't afforded that opportunity. Not that it's not needed, but I feel when I think about my mom's generation, they were in a hustle bustle survival mode all the time. And in that hustle bustle survival mode, she didn't necessarily have the opportunity to be like, okay, do I have a moment to focus on my self-worth today? Or do I have to make sure that I'm going to work every day and taking care of these kids and putting food on the, like I feel like my mom was always in survival mode, that she didn't have the opportunity or wasn't afforded the opportunity to focus on her self-worth or develop her self-worth. And part of that is because she had to put so many things and so many people before her that her self-worth became a matter of self-neglect, you know? And I think they lived in a state of having to have that positive, that have that toxic positivity, when it's like, I'm okay because I have to be okay. You know, I'm not okay, but I'm okay because I have to be okay because I have somebody watching or somebody looking. Well, versus now is like, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay for me to focus on myself for a little bit so that I can elevate and develop my own worth and be enough when I'm at enough at this point. And I want to kind of gauge like your insight on when you don't have that role model, when you don't have that blueprint of what self-worth looks like, how do you escape the cycle of self-neglect or the root of self-neglect?
That's a deep one. That's a definitely deep one. When you don't have that model or that like you said, that cookie cutter to where you acknowledge what it is, that's when you get that self-awareness. But that comes with so much. Like you said, Jeremiah, our parents don't know what self-awareness are they really aware of their self-awareness? You know, do they know, can they experience that burnout? Do they know what burnout really is?
Right.
Can they really recognize those things, that those triggers? It took me just until last year to acknowledge that self-awareness, to realize, okay, you know what? I'm not okay. And it's okay to not be okay. Like you said, I'm a big advocate for that. I had to set those. It's even harder when you set those boundaries. So your first step is to actually be aware, and be aware that, hey, look, my cup is empty. I gotta stop and pour into my cup, because I can't pour into anybody else's cup if my cup is empty. I can't be of any service to anyone else unless I get what I need, that nourishment for me. And after the self was for me on a personal level, like the self-awareness, it was the acknowledging, hey, I'm not okay. So what's my steps? And then I realized I don't set boundaries. Setting those boundaries is something of learning to say no. You know, if you've been brought up in that people pleasing stage to where you're like, hey, okay, I can do it. Okay, I can do it. And that cup is empty. You still have that people pleasing tendencies, maybe past trauma. You're always seeing all of that. And for me, Sunday is my day.
Yeah.
I try not, that's my boundary. That's my hard boundary. Do not Sunday. I just can't do it.
Don't sign me up.
Don't sign me up. I need that one day for myself.
Yeah.
Even if it means I'm sitting at the house reading for the whole day, then so be it.
Yeah.
That's that time for me to be selfish with myself.
Yeah.
And to pour into myself.
I love that. And as you were talking, I was thinking about like doing a self-inventory. A self-inventory of those things that bring me joy and bring me fulfillment, and finding a way to practice those things on a basis. And I'm not saying a daily basis, but on a routine basis where I can stay filled. I mentioned a few minutes ago about sufficiency. And one thing for me that I am very clear on in my morning routine is that Monday through Friday, I have to sage. I have to sage myself Monday through Friday because I don't want to carry something from one day to another. And I want to be clear when I step into the day that I step into the day as clear-minded with sufficiency and the capacity to take on what's before me. And some days I am truly running on God, just allow me to be sufficient enough to take what's before me. Give me mercy, give me grace. Like those are my daily prayers: mercy, grace, and sufficiency, because I have to have some sort of routine where I'm able to, pour into myself and have some joy and fulfillment so that I can be at the capacity that I need to take on what's before me. And I'm learning, when you talk about boundaries, I am learning to be clear of my capacity and my capability, and setting the boundary in that they're two separate things. They're two very different things. I can be capable of running the world, but do I have the capacity today to do that? And for me, I make that clear in my home with my husband. I'm like, I don't have the capacity today. At work, hard stop. Is this something that we can table and discuss at a later time? And for me, one thing that I value now is that my self-awareness for those two things, capacity and capability, is rubbing off on the people around me. Like, I remember calling my boss just last week, and I was asking him a question about staffing. And he was like, you know what, Tiffany? That's not a Friday 4:00 question. Let's tackle this on Monday. And I was like, noted. I'm gonna table this. And for me, it was like I needed that check. I needed that head check to understand, like, this is not something that he has the capacity for at this time. This is not something that I want to have the capacity for at this time. This is something I want to check off my list, but I don't have the capacity to do it. Let's table it until Monday. And I appreciate that, because did we have the capability to discuss it? Yes, it was another 30 minutes in the quote unquote workday where it could have been resolved. But did we have the capacity, or did we want to have the capacity after a week of work to tackle that? So for me, with my self-awareness and with my boundary setting, I am happy that it's rubbing off on the people around me so that I can be held accountable in those things where I too need a head check from here and there. And I think that self-awareness is giving me space to develop my self-efficiency. And when you talk about self-efficiency, that's really about the ability to be successful. And I know at some point in life, they have to align. So from your perspective, do you ever see, and where do you see the alignment, I guess I would say, of self-worth and self-efficiency of being successful in your day-to-day?
Ooh. So, like you said, knowing that you're capable of doing it, but also being aware, that acknowledging that it can be a balancing act. Because you're, on one hand, you're like, I'm capable, I can do this. But then when you acknowledge, okay, wait a minute, that's where that boundary is set. Yeah, I can do that, but at what cost? What is it going to take? Is it going to invest? Is it going to have me lead into my Sunday where that boundary is hard set, and let's be honest, that boundary has been a challenge, especially with loved ones that plan things on Sundays. They're like, well, wait a minute, what do you mean? Why you can't?
Yeah.
That phone's off on do not disturb during this time.
The hard no.
I need that time. It's noted, right. But when your self-worth is high, then so becomes your, being capable, your capability of doing things. You do become a little bit more of a, oh, I can do this. I got this. But in the same token, at what cost? Is it going to cause, you know, extra nights? You got to outweigh that awareness and then your capability at the same time. It's very good to have that capability and to have that to acknowledge that confidence that you can do these things. But then you also have to have that balance of setting those boundaries and being more of a service to yourself then.
I love that. I love taking an inventory of the costs and benefits, because at the end of the day, that inventory, like you said, is something that you have to weigh and balance. Because the good thing and the good and the bad, I'm going to say in hindsight, when it comes to success is measured by your own regard. So what is successful to me, what deems my success in one way or another, is by my own definition. And sometimes for me, especially on a Saturday after I've worked a full week and I have to think about football and carrying this person here and carrying that person, like, success for me is being able to get up, at least had something to eat and put on my stomach, and have made it to 3 o'clock without chewing somebody out when I'm on the road going back and forth. That's success to me. And that is my measure of success on a Saturday. And now during the week, my measure of success, may be different, because I can honestly say that most people's week is Monday through Friday, Monday through Saturday. My week is generally Tuesday through Saturday, because on Sunday, I try to dedicate that time to my family. I try to dedicate that time to making sure that I have a nice reset so that I have a good start on Monday. And I try to have, build memories where my kids can remember me in the kitchen cooking Sunday dinners, where have us going to church together, have us doing homework, preparing for the week and things like that. And on Monday, after I've gone and worked on these people's time clock, it's let me have a little relief before I have to start working on my business and going through my own productivity log for the week. So I think when it comes down to, am I going to be successful? What is the cost and benefit of me keeping this boundary or moving the line? That's big for any one person to have, and big for any one person to abide by and do. And when it comes to your relationships with one another or whomever is in that inner core, I feel that by setting that boundary, like you said, that also plays into your own self-worth and empowerment. Because if I feel empowered in how I know that I'm capable of succeeding in this task, then my empowerment for myself will allow me to build and strengthen the relationship with the person that is dependent on me to be as strong as I need to be in that moment. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And we tend to also have triggers that will trigger, that we know, for like mental triggers that we know without a doubt that boundary is going to come tumbling down. You have to recognize that's all a part of self-awareness, because you have to recognize those triggers and be like, you know what? Not today. Not today. It's a hard pause. You have to sit down and be like, okay, you know what? I'm capable of having that phone conversation, but at what cost?
Yes.
I'll get off that phone and I'll be like, oh,
yes.
So you have to, really sit down and think of, at what cost is that going, and it's okay, because at the end of the day, you've done the best you could and you're acknowledging those mistakes. You're like, okay, you know what? It wasn't a good day, but I learned I could do better today, you know?
Yeah. I love that. So we have talked about self-worth and the root thereof, of being able to have a starting point when you don't have a model to do so. We've talked definitely about boundaries and about tolerance. And one thing that I find with tolerance is I am a very tolerant person to a certain extent. And when we first started like having our annual um self-love conversation with Heather Cherie, she really gave a great analogy of when it comes down to self-worth and understanding how self-love is developed over time. And she gave the analogy of a rubber band and of tolerance being that rubber band. As you build your tolerance, of course, that rubber band stretches. You grow in strength. You grow in capability. You grow in capacity. You grow in being aware of what you're capable of taking on. And for me, at this state in my life, I want to be able to grow my self worth. I want to foster my self worth and advance it to a point where I'm able to find a healthy balance and be confident in my balance. Because, as you mentioned, a lot of times we can begin to feel guilty about those boundaries that we set. And that boundary that we are moving the line, that guilt comes at our own cost. Not necessarily as a result of that person, because we feel like we've let somebody down when they're just accepting whatever the boundary is. So I ask of you, do you feel that one is capable of growing their self-worth as it relates to tolerance and self-love?
Absolutely, absolutely. It can be definitely, um, it could be a learned effort, especially for the self-worth.
Mhm.
And because again, especially with tolerance, you
Mm.
eventually go through things, and just like that rubber band, twofold, it could eventually break.
Yeah,
And how are
yeah,
we gonna fix it?
yeah.
How do we get to that tolerance of that? I'll tell you one, it is a growing thing, because you have to, again, it comes with those boundaries and those healthy boundaries that you set. Um, I made the mistake of having just a personal phone as my personal and my business phone. Don't know what I was thinking. And my work team were like, "Oh, just call Stacey. Okay, it's a 24-hour operation. Just call
Mm,
Stacey." And one year, I decided to go on vacation. I went on my first cruise. Well, you don't have phone service. And it
mm.
was not until I got out there and I kept trying to pick up their phone, like, it's not working. For 7 days? What am I supposed to do for 7 days without a phone? And this, what if my team needs me? They'll live. And when I came back, one of the girls were like, we picked up the phone to try to call you. And we're like, something's not right.
Mhm.
Their phone, you didn't answer, and you always answer. So it ended up being like a growing effect for
Mhm.
me, to where I separated the two lines.
Yeah.
And when I get out that parking lot, I plug that joker up. And when it's plugged up, it automatically programs to do not disturb.
Oh, I like that. I
So
like.
for me, it was more of that was a hard boundary for me, because I had to learn that it's okay to set that down for a minute.
Yeah,
Set it
yeah,
down. You're not gonna be able to do anything else
yeah.
if you don't set that down. You're burning yourself out because you're
Mm,
not setting that down. You know,
right.
and in sitting down with a professional, I ended up getting a therapist. And it was weird, because we come from a society that what you talking to somebody else for, and
Mm,
it's just not that simple all the time. But listening to her tell me, it's those boundaries that I was not setting.
yeah.
Um, not knowing when to say no, not being aware when I was stressed out. I had to have other people telling me, "You're stressed out. That's
Mm.
that's stress." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? That's stress. Stop doing it. I understand you're trying to work many hats, but a lot of times we worry about things that aren't even parts that we have no control over. The
Yeah.
biggest things that we worry about are the things we have no
No control.
control of. And we
Mm-hmm.
have to be aware that, hey, it's going to happen regardless.
Right. Right. Right.
How are we going to go with it and be like, you know what? I'm worthy. I'm worthy of this. I'm worth way much more than even that conversation that probably was on a Friday 30 minutes before you went home. You have to sit down and have that conversation and be like, you know what? For my mental capacity,
Right.
I did this today, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Um, I tend to vent. When I vent, I will call somebody and say, hey, are you okay to deal with me right now? You
Mm.
have the mental capacity to listen to the foolishness that I had to deal with this week. Because I'm
Hmm.
just going to regurgitate all of my emotions and everything that just happened to me this week.
Right.
But I need to know that you're okay to
To
hear
take
that,
this one.
to
Yeah.
take this on right now. And some people are like, yeah, what are you talking about? And some people will be like, no, I can't deal with it today. Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. And that's fine because that's that healthy boundary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That check-in. I like
Yeah.
that. I like the check-in. And I like that you said that you were able to disconnect to recharge. Like that's something like that's a life lesson that I feel that I can use to disconnect to recharge. And when we did our back to school special with Brittany, she brought up a very good point that I still have not been able to implement, but I plan to implement, excuse me, at some point is being able to have a day out of the month where I'm able to disconnect to recharge, where everything on do not disturb, be not be accessible, because I find that when we allow ourselves to be accessible, at what state we allow ourselves to be accessible, that is where we can toe the line on our own self-worth and capacity. Like when you no longer have access, that's when you find your self-worth and you find where the worthiness is in that relationship. Does that make sense? And
Absolutely.
I know I've gotten to a point where I'm like, life itself is a collective and it's lived on a continuum. And because it's lived on a continuum, we have all of these collected life experiences, but they build up on each other. And as I learn from one relationship to the next, from one day to the next, sometimes I have to check in with someone before I'm able to like release and make sure that that person has the capacity to take that on.
Yeah.
And that's a part of self-respect for
Yes.
yourself and for the other person that you're trying to process with. So I love that you shared that.
And it's twofold because if you keep asking people, are you in the mental space to talk to me or deal with me and with my BS this week? Um, you would hope that they would do the same eventually. They'll pick
Right.
up a habit and be like, hey, can you? I'm sorry, I can't. I just can't. I don't have it in me.
Yeah.
I have talked at work for 8 hours. I've had to talk for another 2 hours, and I had to fight through 50 minutes of commute on the way to work and on the way back. I don't have it in me. I just want to sit in my car in
Yeah.
quiet the whole way home,
Yeah.
drinking my sparkling water and just in peace, woosah for a minute. But
Right.
you, like you said, that's a good one is to recharge, make that a plan once a month to disconnect
Disconnect to
for the
recharge
whole day.
for the whole day. That I'm definitely going to work that into my yearly goals of being able to have one day out of the month to completely disconnect to recharge. And I think I read it somewhere that um as a woman, we should have 48 hours to recharge out of the month. And that may seem so easy to do in thought, but in theory, with like just thinking of this month of October, how it's been so crazy, how days have gotten away from me because I've been so busy, so so hustle and bustle, that I experience my own self neglect. So I have non-negotiables for my self-care and for my self-inventory. And like you said earlier, self-maintenance. I have non-negotiables. Things that I do on a monthly basis that are just for me. And I noticed on last week that I had negated some of my non-negotiables. And I had to like take a step back and was like, oh, Tiffany, you're feeding and investing so much in so many others, so many external factors. What have you done for yourself? And for me, that is generally the first question that I ask when I reach out to somebody and somebody reach out to me and they're like, man, I'm having a hard time. Generally, my first question is, what are you doing for yourself? Because if you're making time for yourself, if you're investing in yourself, then your tolerance is way higher than not have invested in yourself, because you're building your tolerance, you're building your capacity to take on what's before you. That's how I'm able to manage my own sufficiency. But I was quick tempered. I noticed it in myself, and being quick tempered in myself and notice like, hey, I haven't abided by my non-negotiables. I need to take a step back. I was like, okay, Tiffany, you need to make time for you. You need to pour into your own cup, because you can't be water when you're thirsty.
I like that.
So
I like
yeah,
that.
I love that.
I like that. I mean, every year, and people think it's crazy, but every year from January to April, I take a 90-day cut off of social media. Just get off. And so much goes on during those times. And people will be like, oh, well, I sent it on this platform. I sent it on that platform. And I'm like, I take this every year, this hiatus, and I get so much stuff done during that time, because a lot of times we have to take out those distractions that we have.
Right.
And during that time, that's when I pull in the extra, the self-help books,
Yeah.
the journaling, the brain dumping,
Yeah.
working on all that extra stuff. But the disconnect one, so I might have to take that one from your book.
We will share it.
Yes.
It will be a shared opportunity where we can hold each other accountable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
So as we kind of wrap up the discussion, we talked a great deal with Rodney about emotional intelligence. And in this conversation, in regards to self-worth, there, of course, is a level of emotional intelligence, that the goal to be successful, to have self-efficiency, is to have some sort of emotional intelligence. But above that, one goal of mine is to have emotional independence. So I'm interested, just by your regard, how does one establish emotional independence as it relates to developing self-worth?
So I feel like emotional independence is closely tied to developing a healthy sense of your self-worth. Okay, so when you are emotionally independent, you rely on yourself for that emotional support and that validation and fulfillment. So rather than seeking it from primarily external factors, that's when you go in, you reduce that dependence on external factors, validation, self-validation, self-compassion. Those are things that all kind of very closely ties in together. Being emotionally independent on your own, where you're not really, that's tying into your self-worth, because you have to be emotionally independent in order to acknowledge that self-worth or to acknowledge that you're worthy.
Yeah. I think for me, as I continue to develop my emotional independence and um, learn to detach from the external factors that bring me, fulfillment and joy. One thing that I've had to really lead with is gratitude for myself and within myself. Um, I've had a lot of moments in my life that I can now say, like, I was really picking up broken pieces. And even in those broken pieces, I can look back now and say those broken pieces were broken gracefully, because it could have been far worse than it could have been. Like, it could have been far worse than it actually was. And learning from those broken pieces is giving me the power um to really develop my emotional independence, to be more confident in my own self-worth and in my own ability to know my value and to be confident in that. I can honestly say, like, as a woman, I've struggled with my own self-confidence. And I think by any regard, most women have that same kind of backstory. If not at any point in their life, they've struggled with self-confidence one way or another. But in doing so, when you get to a moment in life where you have that self-acceptance and you look back on those broken pieces or those broken moments, you acknowledge them with gratitude, and that was something that I got through that could have been far worse than it was. And I have to be grateful for the lesson. I have to be grateful for the mercy, for the grace that was extended to me during those times, because truly I was doing the best that I could.
Something just came in my head. Something just came in my head. Some of the best art is made from broken pieces.
Mm.
That's a whole word.
Yes.
That's why we were going to church today. Some of the best art is made out of broken pieces. And
Right.
a lot of times we have to give ourselves grace.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, it is, self-worth can be very, it's a journey. It's a lifelong journey.
Right.
You're gonna have setbacks. You're gonna
Right.
have times where you're like you said, every day is not going to be that just, get her day, but you got to give yourself grace.
Right.
Like you said, give yourself gratitude, um, and acknowledge those wins.
Mm.
Even if they're small wins,
Yeah.
acknowledge them. I said I was going to start doing every week, and I probably should do it daily because I don't remember the week half the time, the way we do the weeks. But
Yes.
start writing down those small wins
Mm-hmm.
and putting them in a jar. And then at the end of the year, taking those small wins out.
Yeah.
And reading all of that, and like, look at how far I've came.
Yeah.
Look at the things that happen. Because sometimes you forget a lot of that stuff,
Yes.
and it's so easy to fall into that negativity,
Mm-hmm.
because other people are negative, and why are you angry? Well, because that person's angry. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
you know what? This is really not
Right.
helping you with that. Giving yourself grace. Everything is not going to be easy. Things
Mm-hmm.
are going to be difficult. There will be challenges. I always say that God never gives me one thing. He always got to give me a bunch of them happening at the same time, because he feels like I'm just his little warrior. But at the same token, understanding and acknowledging that self-worth, being confident, and acknowledging those capabilities. And can I do it, and at what cost?
Yeah. I love that. That's good. That's that's really good. This is good. This has been
No,
good. This
I
has been good. We shocked ourselves up.
did. Yeah, I was like, she hitting a hard topic, but it's definitely, it's a
Yeah.
journey. It's a race, you know.
And that is what this platform has been built on. And when I look back where we are today, 5 years before, and when I was thinking about this fifth year, how we've gotten here, it's been strength through sustainability. We have been able to sustain. And sustainability, like we talked about early on in this season 7, winning wounds. Winning does not always look the same. But if you count every win, then you will know you have won with every win that you have, big or small, and that all wins deserve to be celebrated. So I appreciate you for engaging in this conversation and for sharing your journey with us. Um, I know for me, just like you said, self-love, self-worth, self-respect, self-compassion, self-confidence, self-acceptance, all of those things are a continuum and are a journey that I am still on myself. And it was important for me to wrap up this season with that, so that someone that may be going through the same, going through the same, or on the same path that we are on this journey, that they know that they're not alone in it. Because it's nothing wrong. It's always good to be able to have someone that you can identify with and to share the journey with.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So I appreciate you. Thank you so much. You are more than welcome to share your tags, even though your Instagram tags, although you're off January
through April
on your sabbatical. Tell people where to find you, some of the happenings that you have going on with your platform and with your own business ventures, if you don't mind.
My Instagram is exclusively Stacey, altogether lowercase. And I am currently working on a nutrition and wellness certification. So that all of this is just running in together, But
yes.
basically, I'm working on a nutrition and wellness certification so that I can better serve for meal prepping and helping people that just don't know where to start with nutrition or wellness.
Right.
Yes. So once everything is up and running on the website, that will be Love at First Bite.
Yes.
It's still in the process of creation and content creation right now. So the website's not completely out yet, but that will also be another Instagram page. Will be the Love at First Bite HTX as well.
Yes, and I definitely look forward to that journey, because I have been a part of it and I have prompted and promoted this. So I'm looking forward to the development thereof and the greatness that comes out of it as well.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Of course. I do have a couple of announcements for our platform. As I mentioned, we this weekend have celebrated our 5th year of podcasting. And as we wrap up this year, all of the lateral part of this year, this last season, fall and winter, is about community service and outreach. And ongoing, beginning November the 1st, we will have another round of our 30 days of gratitude. That campaign is geared towards shining light on daily gratitude. So you'll see some very familiar faces, those that have been a part of the platform, as well as the community outreach, share their own personal gratitude. And then we'll also be collecting donations for our Pack a Purse and a care package for the homeless. This year, our goal is 50. 25 women, 25 men, and being able to have care packages to provide relief for those that are unsheltered during this season and as the season changes. So I've been posting all of that on social media, on my, am I doing it right? Yep. On the Instagram page, so that you'll be able to have access to that, and know how to donate and be a part of the give back as well. Of course, our signature event is just around the corner, and that is our annual visionary retreat. And guys, I'm trying to tell you, it's been so much hard work, effort, and energy that has gone into the planning and preparation, that I'm so excited to present it to you guys, but I'm also excited to welcome past and present visionaries. I will admit I have not done the best at marketing. So when you see it on social media, click on it so you can find out more about it, because I am horrible at posting about it, but I'm trying to get better. So the Visionary Retreat is the first weekend in December, December 1st through the 3rd. On Friday, there's an exclusive event for those that will be lodging with us. It is their welcome reception. But on Saturday, we have a day of solitude. That day of solitude is going to really highlight self-care in a different light. So we won't have the glitz and the glam with the spa. We'll have a lot of internal self-care, and we have partnered with Just Chill Out Yoga and Purple Star Goddess to be a part of that. The day of solitude includes both breakfast and lunch, and there's an excursion for those that will be lodging with us as well on that day. The main event, which is the visionary celebration on that Sunday, we will be having our host. I'm sorry, I'm the host. We will have our keynote speaker, Nikki Knight, who will be present and to be a part of that celebration. So definitely remain connected on our IG, which is our home, and that is JJAYKC community, so that you will be able to get all of the happenings and all of the information about Visionary and all of these ongoing things that we have. Be sure to tune in on Tuesday for Talk Tuesday as I recap this episode that we've had with Stacey. And as always, I encourage you guys to remain connected. Like, subscribe, and follow our YouTube channel at JJAYKC Podcast, and keep talking. Thank you guys. Have a great Sunday.